Hey guys, welcome to another ManOn2nd podcast. I'm joined, as always, with Joe Frisaro and a special guest today, Bally Sports analyst, former Marlin, former MLB player Nick Green, joining us today on the podcast. Nick, thank you for coming on, and Joe, if you want to give a better background of our guest.
Yeah, I had the pleasure in 12 and 13 for a little bit. Nick was here with the Marlins. 8-year career, started in '04 with the Atlanta Braves. Bounced around. We are fortunate to have him here. One of the really good guys in the game, and now an analyst, does a great job up there in Atlanta on the Braves. So I wanted to reach out to Nick and kind of capture the moment of what went on in Atlanta. And yeah, Nick, just kind of the emotions. Obviously, a roller coaster year for the Braves. A lot went on and off the field, and then last night had to be a lot of joy to watch him seal the deal and bring the trophy home.
Yeah, it's really rewarding because when you watch a team struggle throughout the course of the season with injuries, lack of performance by some guys, they just didn't come together as a team. Couldn't string together any wins in a row, hardly. To see everything kind of come together at the end and win a championship's unreal. I mean, I played for Brian Snitker for 3 years, and I think the emotions for me for him are more joyous than anything else. I mean, I'm so happy for that guy. He deserves everything that he's gotten. I talked to him the other day, and he said, "Greeny, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired." I said, "What are you going to do when you get done with the season?" He said, "I'm going to watch Yellowstone and sleep." That's what he said. So it's just been a grind, man. And to see them accomplish what they accomplished yesterday was just unbelievable.
Yeah, Nick, I want to follow up on that because I know behind me there's a photo of Jack McKeon, who was, in my early years on the Marlins, and then seeing Jack at age 71, 72 at the time, winning the World Series, and the guy won 1,000 games in the minor leagues, 1,000 games in the big leagues. That's only been done once in baseball history, and I think it's going to be done twice because Brian Snitker, I think, has 1,000 big league wins. But yeah, just for that model, a manager that really paid his dues and managing and coaching in the minor leagues, and for him to hold this together and give what he did to do what he did last night.
Well, it's a message of perseverance, right? I mean, when you think about him, he could have quit a long time ago. And if you go back to and remember what happened, the way he got the job, um, number one, he kind of gave up on managing in the big leagues. And I said to him the other day, I said, "How does this feel?" I mean, I didn't expect you to be here. You didn't expect to be here. He said, "It's surreal." I mean, when you work so hard to get to a spot where you feel like you are going to be at the pinnacle of your career as a manager for him, and you think, I'm never going to get there. Well, you get there, and the way he got there was because Freddie Gonzalez ended up getting fired in 2016. 2017, the team wasn't any good, and he was expected to be fired after that season. Well, the only reason he stayed was because they had such a mess with the Capalella international signing stuff. Cavi gets banned from baseball, so they can't fire the manager at that time either, so they have to keep somebody around. They keep Brian Snitker around. Alex Anthopoulos comes along, and Alex doesn't know Snit at all. So he's got to learn Snit. He's got to get to know him. And that relationship has just taken off. And in 2018, they win the champion or the division. They weren't expected to win. And then all of a sudden, now he's got 4 division titles and a world championship. He's got a manager of the year. I don't know if last night, just hearing him after the game, he's a really emotional guy. And I don't know if it's really hit him yet. So I don't know the emotions of what that would be like for somebody who worked so hard to get somewhere, never expected to get there, gave up on their dream, and all of a sudden, in the last 4 years, has 4 division titles and a world championship. I don't know if we could put that into words, but to see everybody praise him, to see him manage the way he did in the World Series, shows you who he is. He never gave up on the players. If you go back to Will Smith, I think that's the best example of who Brian Snitker is as a manager and a person. Will Smith probably shouldn't have been in the closer role. And then he didn't take him out. He believed in him. And Will Smith says, the only reason I was successful at the end of the year was because Brian Snitker trusted me and he believed in me and he kept running me out there. And that's a testament to who Brian Snitker is, how loyal he is to those guys, and also what the players mean to him and what he means to the players.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story. Yeah, just a lot of emotions there.
There are a ton. It's hard to put into words. It really is.
Yeah, so this Braves season was probably very emotional too in itself, with Acuna going down at the All-Star break. They were under 500. What did you think? Did you think that this was possible? Like, if you were looking back at the All-Star break, I think they were 44 and 45 at the All-Star break, and then Acuna goes down. Were you ever looking at this and thinking at the end they were going to be the World Series champions?
Well, I scheduled golf all last week because I didn't expect them to be there. And my wife was like, "Why did you commit to all these things?" And I was like, nobody thought they were going to be there. We thought they were going to be done at the beginning of the postseason. We didn't expect them to win the division for one. And then the way they took off after the All-Star break was incredible. And if you remember, there was a period of 17 games where it was win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Now, there was a makeup game in there with the Padres, so it got taken away. But they couldn't get over 500. And I think they got over 500 at game 111, I think is what it was. So that, to me, you're going almost through, what is that, 2 quarters of the season, or 2/3 of the season, and they couldn't get over 500. And no way, nobody expected that. I mean, how do you expect a team to come together? Now, did they have the personnel to do it? I felt like they did, but I didn't expect it to happen because they just couldn't do it. And once they got over that hump, they kind of took off. But, I think the biggest thing there was kind of changing what was going on in the locker room with Jock Peterson coming over when Acuna got hurt. When Acuna got hurt, everybody wrote them off. But Alex Anthopoulos, to his credit, immediately goes to get Jock Peterson. Well, what happens when you get a player who's been struggling and they're a really good player? It's like almost like they have a fresh start. They get to start over. And I felt like that's what happened with Jock. I believe he had an 11-game hitting streak when he first came over. And so he did his part when he got there. He helped bring some energy to the team. He helped bring some clubhouse presence, a winning presence into that clubhouse to add to Freddie Freeman. And I think that, to me, was a big turn of events for the team because Alex went and got him. And also Stephen Vogt. They credit Stephen Vogt for bringing some life to that clubhouse and some energy to that clubhouse too. Although, he got hurt at the end of the year and he was a backup catcher essentially. So, but what does it mean to bring those type of guys to the clubhouse? And that team needed a jolt, and they got it with those two guys. And obviously, at the deadline, Alex added some really good outfielders as well.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about the deadline. Because when Acuna got hurt, like a lot of teams, especially in their position where the Braves were, could have just folded on the season, come back next year. But they went out and got Duvall. They went out and got Rosario, and they got Peterson. 3 guys who essentially in each round of the playoffs stepped up and was like, okay, this guy carried them through the DS, through the CS, and now the World Series. So can you talk about just all of those guys' impact? Because I know when Duvall left, that was like he was a good guy in their locker room when he was there before, and so it was good for him to come back. Like, can you talk about all the impact those guys had?
Yeah, you look at Duvall. I thought it was funny because when they traded for Duvall, obviously he had success over here in Atlanta, but it just didn't fit. Like, if you go through the fans and talk to the fans, everybody was mad because they didn't re-sign Duvall, but there was nowhere for him to play. That they had Ozuna in left field, they had Acuna in right field, and Pache was supposed to be the guy in center. And as you guys know, Adam Duvall is the guy that has to play every day. You can't put him on the bench and play him 2 times a week. It's not going to work. So, for him going to Miami, coming back, I thought that was a big deal for him, big deal for the team. But when he got traded back over, Snit texted him and said, "Hey, are you going to be here today? Because I'm putting you in the lineup." He wanted him in the lineup immediately, and I thought that was pretty cool. But the excitement of just getting 3 guys that we thought might have an impact, but we didn't know, I thought was pretty cool because when you say with Jock Peterson, you have 4 guys, and Eddie Rosario was hurt when he came over, so they sat him on the IL for a little bit longer because there really wasn't a spot for him to play. And how many of those guys do you expect to hit on? You expect to hit on maybe two max. And they hit on all 4. So I don't think anybody could have drawn that up. But I thought that Soler getting in the lineup every day, the last 7 days, I think, before he came over, he was really swinging the bat well. So they saw something in him, and they get him. They put him in the lineup immediately. Within a week, I believe, he moved up to the 2 spot in the order. And I thought that was huge for the team. Not your prototypical 2-hole hitter, but he did a good job. And I was really impressed with his patience at the plate. He laid off a lot of tough pitches. Obviously, he has the power. But what he told us is that he was trying to replicate that 48 home run season. I think it was 2019 when he did that. And he just kept struggling because he was trying to do the same stuff he did a couple of years ago. Well, you can't do that in baseball. That's not how it works. So he needed a fresh start. He got a reset button that he hit, and he really took off. Eddie Rosario, I mentioned, was on the IL for a while. And when he came back, that's when Jock Peterson had been struggling. So he just kind of slid back into a role where he could play every day for the most part. And Duvall was that constant in that lineup every day after he came over. And you guys know he's going to hit 220, 230, but he's going to drive in 30 and 100. And that's all Brian Snitker cares about. So if you can take a guy like that, clubhouse guy that's really good, a guy that's going to drive in runs and protect him with other guys in the lineup, then you're going to get production out of everybody. So that's what happened with Duvall. A ton of big hits for him. If you look at the postseason, he didn't swing the bat that well, but he did have some big hits. And that's kind of what they expected from Duvall. And he produced. And then Soler, holy cow, in the World Series, I mean, the 3 home runs, I called it as soon as he hit the home run last night. That's the only guy you can give the MVP to. That's it. Because he had the leadoff home run in Game 1. He had the pitch hit, go-ahead home run in Game 4. And then last night, he set the tone with that 3-run home run in the third.
Yeah, Nick, I want to ask you go back to the deadline, because as a former player, when you see for the Braves clubhouse before the deadline and after, when all of a sudden you see guys, big leaguers coming in, obviously you don't replace a Ronald's, the total package he is, but what message does that send? And as a player, how uplifting, does that to the locker room when you see that?
Well, when you lose your best player, you feel like the season's going to be over with, especially if you're not playing well. And then you say, how do we replace him? Well, I'm sitting there as an analyst saying, we've got to get an impact bat. You have to get an impact bat. Well, Alex Anthopoulos and his team go out and get 4 different guys who they see something in. I think the biggest thing, too, was obviously they get Jock Peterson for one, and I think that kind of changed a lot of things as far as the energy in the clubhouse, the positivity, the winning vibe that he brings to the clubhouse. But you have to look at the numbers, too. I mean, they didn't give anybody up for those guys, and they were taking on payroll. So by taking on payroll, you're going, okay, well, they're serious. That's something to, as a team, that a general manager can do for the clubhouse, as far as saying, we're going to take on money. A lot of people think we're cheap. We're not going to do this, but we're doing it, and we're trying to win. And I think it was just a different vibe. And it wouldn't be different if the guys didn't perform the way they did, probably, but they did. And I felt like everybody fit in. Soler said last night it took him a week to feel comfortable, and then he slid right in. Now, something funny that happened too with Soler. We have to do walk-off interviews at the end of the games, and I interviewed Soler and asked him about Drew Smiley, who had thrown the ball well, who actually became a big part of the team in the middle part of the season. And he said, who? I said, Drew Smiley. He goes, I don't know, because he didn't know him yet. I thought it was pretty funny, but everybody fit in, and they loved that camaraderie between each other. Eddie Rosario too. I mean, tip your cap to that guy. Holy cow, he was incredible. But yeah, going back to the original question, it's just when you add those type of guys, that type of payroll, and you're just showing the team that you want to win. And does it always work out? No, it doesn't. But this happened to work out, and it was phenomenal.
Nick, do you think, last year the expectations were high. I know it was the COVID year and it was a little quirky, but up 3-1 on the Dodgers, you didn't, if that slips away, don't win the World Series. Expectation coming into this year, World Series contender, go for it all, and then the slow start. Do you think maybe there's a little extra added pressure the Braves put on themselves early on? Maybe they try to live up to an expectation. And, obviously Freddie didn't get off to the hottest start. We know what happened with Ozuna. But, it's like, it just didn't click? Do you think perhaps it was trying to live up to something?
I think there was pressure for sure. I mean, when you're coming off a season where you have the reigning MVP, you perform better than expected. If you remember too, they essentially had one starter for quite a bit of the year with Max Fried, and then Ian Anderson came along and he pitched well. So they exceeded expectations, no doubt about it. But Freddie Freeman's comment before the season was World Series or bust. And I thought that was a little strong. I didn't know if they would be able to accomplish that. And so when you have those expectations, then yeah, you're gonna try to do a little bit too much at times. It seems like everybody struggled early on in the season. The bullpen wasn't in good shape. Freddie Freeman struggled early. Austin Riley didn't get his first base hit for like 3 weeks, or extra base hit for 3 weeks. And so when Ozuna goes down with his injury, they still hadn't taken off. Acuna was the one guy that carried the team that kind of kept them afloat for a while. I just feel like there was a ton of pressure on the team because of what they accomplished, even though that in 2020 they weren't necessarily expected to be that team. But they put the pressure on themselves because they had won 3 straight division titles at that time. So if you win 3 straight division titles, you expect to win again. And I think that the rough start really took a toll on a lot of guys. Again, Brian Snitker, I talked to him multiple times about this, and he was completely worn out at the end of the year. Well, he was worn out in the middle of the year too.
Yeah, I wanted to say, because this was a really down year for the NL East in general, especially in the regular season. I mean, even the Braves didn't have the regular season that we thought they would have. So was there like a lot of panic early on at that time, or was it like, like you said, they've won 3 straight division titles. They're like, we got this. We'll bring it together at one point, which I think,
yeah, they did. And I don't think there was panic. I think they were putting pressure on themselves, absolutely trying to do too much. But Brian Snitker, and this is why it's so important to have a good leader, because Brian Snitker never went up and down. He stayed the same the entire season. And if you have a leader in the clubhouse that's throwing stuff around, yelling, screaming, having team meetings, the whole deal, then that's going to make things worse. And he didn't do that. And also Freddie Freeman, being the leader that he is, he can help that clubhouse as far as making sure guys are held responsible for what they do, whether they work hard, get their work in. I think that stuff's important. You have to give a lot of credit to Ron Washington, who, if you talk to Ozzie Albies or Dansby Swanson or Austin Riley or Freddie Freeman, those infielders, he holds them accountable for doing their work every day too. So if they don't do their work, they hear it from Wash. And I think that kind of presence is really, really important. Eric Young, give him a ton of credit as well. He's an amazing coach, an amazing guy, a steady presence in that clubhouse. And I feel like that kind of leadership is what really helped this team get over that hump. Even though if you asked them and they were honest with you, I'm sure they were going to say, I don't know if we would ever get going or not. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it. And they were able to. But as far as the presence there, the steadiness, no panic at all throughout that clubhouse.
Nick, I thought it was kind of poetic that the final out, Dansby threw, crossed the diamond at first. It looked like he wanted to go to second. I'm like, you got to throw to Freddie Freeman. He's got to catch the final out. And obviously Freddie homers in the game as well, and with his future. I mean, just the fact the ball fittingly is in his glove on the final out, and what do you think it means to him, and what do you think's next for him?
Well, I hope he stays for number one. I don't think you can replace him any way you try to do that, whether you try to move Austin Riley to first base, try to get a third baseman. You can't replace Freddie Freeman. So you've got to find a way to get him signed. I know that was weighing on him throughout the course of the season, especially early on. He had twins in the offseason, so he had a lot on his mind. None of that helped his performance, but once he figured out and got going, you couldn't stop him. But to see him catch that final out, I thought was just perfect. It was a perfect ending to it. Dansby Swanson was supposed to go to second base. Ozzie didn't get there in time. So, Ron Washington, I'm sure, wore him out for that, even though they got the final out. But to see Freddie's arms up in the air, I thought was so nice to see. He deserves it. If you look at the Atlanta Braves, you think about the Chipper Jones before Freddie. And now for the past, 10, 12 years, it's been Freddie Freeman. And to see him catch that ball, put it in his pocket, and I know you guys heard what he's going to do with it, right? He's going to give it to Brian Snitker.
Yeah.
And I think just that tells you who he is as a person, what Brian Snitker means to him. And that guy, he's got to come back. You have to find a way to sign him. I don't know where this team goes if they don't.
Yeah, there are very few players in baseball you could sit around and say should absolutely spend their entire career with one team, but he's certainly one of them. I know Marlin fans will probably want him to go out west somewhere, but but speaking objectively, I mean, obviously he's a super player and all he means to the Braves and baseball, and just a great ambassador for our sport as well. But yeah, that's interesting that he's giving it to Snick, because I would suggest, I would have thought that would be where it ultimately should go to the manager.
I thought it was great. I mean, but that doesn't surprise me with Freddie either. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, he's one of the nicest, kindest guys you'll ever meet. Cares about the sport, cares about the game, cares about his team, cares about his teammates. And I just feel like that's just perfect.
Yeah, but Joe, I think Marlins fans would rather Freddie Freeman come to Miami.
Yeah. That would be a coup, right?
But Nick, speaking of the Marlins, you were able to see them a lot, obviously in the same division. You played for them the last time they tore it down, and you played a little bit in 2013, that first year of that rebuild. Where do you see the Marlins right now? Can they get to Atlanta's level? They have a lot of young, interesting pitching, but the offense still not there yet. And so, what is your outlook on the Marlins?
I think they're going to be a really good team. I think they're doing it right. I mean, when you look at when I was there, they signed all those veteran guys to backloaded deals, because they knew they were going to get rid of them. They were just going to try to buy a championship. If it worked, it worked. If not, get rid of them. And they aren't on the hook for the money, right? So now they're doing it the right way. They're getting really good players. I love Sandy Alcantara. He's unbelievable. Trevor Rogers is amazing. I think Brian Anderson's going to be one of those guys that's reminds me a little bit of a Nick Markakis, kind of steady bat in the lineup with more power than Nick. I think that's going to be important. Now, what you do have to do is you're going to have to go find some veterans somewhere, right? I think that if you could find some sort of veteran power bat, that's you got to spend some money, but you have to find one, because I don't think you could continue to try to win without something like that. If you look at all these teams that have won, they have those guys. Freddie Freeman is a guy in Atlanta. They hit on Ronald Acuna. They've hit on Ozzie Albies. They've hit on Dansby Swanson. And that's kind of what the Marlins are doing. They're going to hit on a lot of young guys. Jazz Chisholm's legit, right? And he's going to be there for a long time. But you've got to build around those guys. So it's going to be interesting to see who they can pick up as far as a veteran presence is concerned. And I think you've got to do that soon. I don't think they can wait around to see what happens, because at that time, does a team come together? Now you're going to start losing some of those young guys. So they have some work to do as far as trying to piece that team together, but they have a lot of good young talent for sure. And, they have a great leader in Derek Jeter, understands the winning culture, understands what it takes to win. And I think that's important as well. Donnie is unbelievable. I think that when I look at, obviously he was my hitting coach in LA, and he was my hitting coach in New York, but looking at him from a managerial standpoint, he does a tremendous job. He goes in every day. The players understand their roles. They're willing to talk to him. The door's wide open that he can go in. You can go in and talk to him about anything, and he's going to tell you the truth. And I think that is a big, important piece too. If you don't think the manager's telling you the truth, then you don't have respect for him. And I think that's one thing that Donnie does really well. So yeah, the winning culture is definitely there. It's just getting the other pieces around those young guys to really get this thing to where they want to go.
Yeah, Nick, we here on our podcast and site have been pushing for Nick Castellanos, who we feel, he's a South Florida guy. He's going to cost money. He's going to be coveted, but he is that kind of middle lineup profile, especially with anticipating a DH. So you could play some right field. You could DH if in the National League. But this is what when in the first half, when the Marlins had Duvall, Nick, you obviously played in Marlins Park, now Lone Depot. I know you're a big power guy, and that was easy for you to hit the ball out. But one reason I did like Duvall here was, yes, he would hit the average, and the OBP wouldn't be great, but the slugging would be really good. And he's one of those guys that the park wouldn't demoralize. And I think that the Marlins are kind of really underestimated from the hitters they've sought what that ballpark has done to people, and even moving the fences in. you not only say, oh, we need an impact bat, you got to find the right one, because a lot of guys who play the middle of the field or can go to right center are going to say, when's the deadline to get me out of here? They'll say it under their breath, but they don't say it publicly. And so talk about that like Duvall fit here for that, to me, for that power.
He did. And the thing with Duvall, though, and what happened in Miami was that he didn't have the right people around him. So Duvall's not going to carry your team. He's just going to be another bat that has some power. He's going to slug, and that's going to be what it is, right? So is he going to help your team win a ton of games? He might help some, but he's not as impactful if the lineup's not as stacked. Like the Braves lineup's stacked. So Duvall's highly impactful. And that, to me, is like Duvall's a guy that would fit well if you had some other pieces around him. If you had Nick Castellanos plus Duvall, then now we're talking, right? So, yeah, it's frustrating to be in a ballpark that you feel like you hit the ball well, the ball doesn't go out. It is what it is. And I actually love Miami. I thought it was a great ballpark. I don't hit the ball. I didn't hit the ball at the right center with power. So if you pick a pull righty, a guy that pulls balls right-handed, he'll be fine. Castellanos is the guy that drives the ball all the way around the park, but he can double you in the gap to right center all day long or shoot down the right field line. So I think he would fit well there. A guy like Ozzie Albies is an impactful bat, but Ozzie's a dead pull hitter left-handed. So you've got to pick and choose which guys you get, and now you can't completely stack your lineup right-handed either. And some of the good guys they have in that lineup, Garrett Cooper's another guy. He's a right-handed bat. Brian Anderson, right-handed bat. So you have to when you look at a team and the dynamic of a lineup, you've got to be able to piece it together, left, right. So you have to get the right pieces. When you look at what the Braves did, they mixed the lineup up in Game 6 of the World Series, but they put Rosario, then they put Soler, Freeman. They didn't want to stack the lefty at the top, and so you're going to have righty somewhere in there. But the whole point was trying to get lefty. So you have to really look at that. You have to look at the guys that fit in that ballpark. And I think the analytics now can really help you in that department, but you also have to get the right guys that have the right mentality, that aren't going to get frustrated, as you said. So there are a lot of dynamic pieces out there that you can get, but you got to find the right ones.
Yeah. Do you think Lefty Power plays better here? And the Marlins do have some Lefty Power in Jesus Sanchez, Lewin Diaz, as it, like you said, Jazz, he hits them and admires them as well as anyone. Do you think that it plays a little bit better here?
I do. And I think when you look at, I haven't seen Lewin Diaz a ton, but I feel like he's a pull guy. Jazz, I feel like he's a more of a pull guy power-wise. I think he could develop right or left center gap power consistently. I think he's got that. And Jesus Sanchez, I haven't seen enough of him. But, yeah, I think it's fine. If you have a lefty pull, you're fine. And I think that's something that you have to think about. Righty hitting the other way is going to be tough. That's you got to – and I'm not saying I don't want everybody pulling the ball, but you've got to have more of a righty pull guy, and a lefty can kind of pull and spray. I think you still have that power to the left side, pull side. So I think that, yeah, if you get those – you have those pieces with those guys you mentioned, they can hit the ball out of the park to right field all day long. And I think that's completely fine. Getting that righty that can drive it out to right center is a little bit different story.
Yeah, there's not many Stantons out there.
Yeah.
I wish there was.
No, I think that was real important. And thanks, Nick. You had a real good insight into that, because the fan base here is eager. Obviously, it wants much more. And they're just like, go sign guys. They just throw money at guys. And yes, that's part of it. But this ballpark plays a little bit differently, and you got to sign the right guys. And I think as free agency will start in a few days, that's something that their fan base should keep in mind. You did a great job in breaking that down for us.
Well, remember too, you're gonna have to, because they aren't winning right now, right? They wanted 2020 because it was a shortened season. I don't know if they could have maintained that pace.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks they could, but you're gonna take some lumps. So you have to find the right veteran guys that you're gonna sign that are okay taking a year or two to really get this over the hump. And a lot of veteran guys want to win now. So if I'm going to sign a big contract, say for instance, I'm going to sign a $50 million deal. I want to go somewhere I'm going to win. Yeah. And is that team going to win within the next 2 years? That's the question. So, in a lot of the Braves fans get mad because we didn't re-sign Mark Melanson. Well, Mark Melanson went where he wanted to go, and a lot of guys maybe don't want to go certain spots. Melanson would rather go to San Diego. They had a good young team. Did they falter? Absolutely. Did the Braves win? Yeah. So in hindsight, it looks like he should have signed with the Braves, but that's where he wanted to go. So you have to think about that too, and you don't get frustrated at management just because somebody doesn't sign there. It's not always their fault. The player has a choice too, and a guy that's getting a lot of money, a lot of times it's not all about the money. Honestly, I don't want the guy that's all about the money anyway. I want the guy that wants to win, that wants to do his part every day to help the team win, because that's what it's all about in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean,
I tell Nick your story back in 12 or 13.
Okay, if my memory plays me right, I was at this game. I was younger. I was at this game. You hit a walk-off sac fly versus the Giants in like a really bad extra innings game.
Yeah, I got pied
was
in
it the Giants?
I don't remember the team. I got pied in the face though with shaving cream, and I was pretty upset because my eyes were stinging.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hit a sac fly to tie that game up, and then hit a walk-off sac fly. That's all I could do back then. A walk-off sac fly to win it.
I don't know why that memory just rung in my head as soon as Joe was like, "Oh, we're having Nick Green on the podcast." I'm like, "Oh, is that a game where he hit a walk-off sack fly?"
I thought you were gonna say, "Hey, you were the guy that didn't sign an autograph for me." That could have been me too.
No, you had a moment, and Mike remembered. So that's
oh my.
He has to remind me of just how old I am because he's like 22 years old. So.
I want to give. I need to also say, wearing the shirt, proud of Aussie Albies for winning the World Series for Curaçao in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Us Dutch people are really proud when a Dutch guy can pull off a World Series ring. Back-to-back now with Jansen. Jansen winning one last year. But Nick, we appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody, you can follow us on the 5 Reasons Sports Network and at the ManOn2nd Twitter page. And Nick, again, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah. Good to see you, Joe.
Yeah.